Hey party people, welcome to yet another edition of DJ to DJ. I am your man DJ Fernando G, and as always, another amazing talent that I'll be talking to today. From the real 92.3, let's welcome DJ Fuze. What's up, brother?
What up,
How you doing, man?
Thank you for having me, bro. Man, I'm here. Ready. Let's do this.
Let's get after
some questions
it, right?
going. Yeah. I'm excited, man.
So, as you know, on DJ to DJ, we always talk about how DJs got started and what it took to get to where they are today. So let's go back a little bit. I was noticing that you had some Power 106 influences back in the early days. Why don't we start off with that and how
definitely.
you started getting influenced and how you discovered DJing? How did it all come about?
Yeah. Well, actually, I discovered DJing I wasn't really into like the whole radio DJ scene in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I was more into like bands like Linkin Park, Limp Bizkit, Incubus.
Okay.
I had DJs like in the background, like cutting it up, like during the performances or whatever.
Right.
And that's what really initially caught my eye, like attention.
Interesting.
So I was like, when I turned 15, my mom bought me a turntable and a mixer, like the cheapest thing that was available at the store.
Right.
And I didn't even know you needed a mixer. That's how bad like I was, I was such a rookie. And the guy at the store was like, "Do you want a mixer too?" I'm like, "Well, do I need one?" He's like, "Yeah." Like, come on. So yeah, I got that going, and I just wanted to make the scratch sounds. That's really what I wanted to do, like the little ticky. That was like so cool to me. So eventually, like I started going into like forums. Back then, there wasn't that many like the internet was still kind of like a newer thing. So
Right.
I'd go on forums and find like hip hop, like DJ forums, and they were like, "Oh, like 2 turntables," and I started doing more research and stuff. And then I learned that on the radio they had these mix show DJs. So I started listening to Power. I mean, I grew up listening to Power.
Right.
And little by little, I'm like putting 2 and 2 together. I'm like, damn, that's what they're doing on air. Like they're have the 2 turntables and they're literally mixing on air. I'm like, back then I was a dumb kid. I was in high school, so I didn't know much. But yeah, after that, I'm like, I started like becoming more of a student of the game and just listening more and more to the DJs on the radio. And then next thing you know, I'm like, I want to sound like them, so that's how I transitioned into just kind of like wanting to scratch into like wanting to actually like mix and DJ.
Out of those first DJs that you started listening to on Power 106, who would you say was the biggest influence on you?
The ones that caught my attention early were Koki. He's like probably like my favorite DJ all time. Mr. Chalk, B Junkie, who else? DJ Ron, E-Man, Echo, Vice, obviously. I'm sure I'm forgetting Verman. Pretty much like whoever was on Power, like they were legit, they were doing their thing. They were killing it in their own, they each had their own style. So, I mean, even on 92.3, which was the beat back then, 100.3 also, like Melody, you had like DJ Curse. So I mean, LA radio just had like some dope DJs on air. So
yeah, that's one of the things that we were blessed as far as DJs are concerned here in Los Angeles. I mean, we have a flurry of DJs that are just sick, man. I mean, they just got it going on. I mean, like all the guys that you just mentioned, Richard Vision, Tony B, AJ Moore, all these guys, from all different walks of life and all different genres. I mean, just nail it. I mean, like we just recently had DJ Eddie One on from Cali, and he's got the Latin thing going on. Lenny G, the same thing. I mean, these are guys that are definitely motivating the next generation to come. So
definitely.
How difficult was it for you to start scratching? Because that's one of the things that I've never been able to conquer. I can beat mix, I can remix, I can do re-edits and stuff, but I'm lousy at scratching. So how did you manage to master it?
You know what? I was so sloppy when I started. I think it took me like a good 3 years to finally start sounding like kind of decent. My first like 3 years, I was just like dunka, like super like baby scratches, like offbeat. It was bad. I remember I had a cousin that's a year younger than me. We went to high school together, and he'd come like to my house often, and then he'd tell me straight out, he's like, "Bro, you suck, man. Like what are you doing?" And I'm like, I was just a bedroom DJ, so I wasn't like DJing for a crowd. So I mean, it kind of hurt my feelings, but it wasn't like who's gonna hear this? You know, like nobody's gonna hear this. I'm just in here. It's kind of like a hobby, you know. But yeah, I mean that's kind of how it started out, and little by little just started like practicing more and just kind of getting the hang of it. And yeah, to this day I'm still like learning like new scratches, you know. Sometimes I feel like I sound a little sloppy with this. So I'm like trying to scratch and practice whenever I get a chance, but it's one of those, it's like a sport, you know, you never stop learning. So I'm always a student of the game for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, no, and that's one of the most important things. I mean, when I got started, man, when I discovered turntables, I went crazy on it. I mean, I was on those things like every single day. I had a huge passion for music, and but nevertheless, the concept of beat mixing took me a while. I discovered the turntables, and it was like 1979 when my brother brought them over to Honduras, and it wasn't until like late 1980 that I finally understood the concept of beat mixing. My brother was trying to teach me, and for the life of me, my ear was just not getting it. You know, how did you come about learning to beat mix?
I think I was similar to you, where I didn't grasp the concept at first. You know what I mean? Like I would hear it, and like it sounded good, but like when it came down to me doing it, like I just didn't get it at first. Like, so what I had the mixer, and I only had one turntable. So then later on, I plugged in my PlayStation on the left side, and I would load a CD, and I just kind of like just hit play on the CD and let the song play. But then I thought that like just hitting play on the turntable, like when you like start the song, it would somehow like magically like blend. I'm like, I was like so bad. But just eventually just like messing around. I'm coming home from school and just turning on the turntables and just kind of like practicing. I'm like, all right, the pitch, okay. Like the more and more you mess around with it, the more that like you start understanding things, and just little by little it all kind of just comes together, you know?
Right. That's funny how you say that that you plugged in a PlayStation. When I started the same way, because I went to my dad and I said, Dad, you know, I want to learn how to DJ. Can you help me get some turntables? He's all like, no, get a job and buy your turntables. I was like, all right. So then I went out and I got a Saturday morning job delivering furniture, and every Saturday I would go and put a down payment at Radio Shack for a realistic mixer. And then I got my mixer, and then I got a realistic turntable. And so I was all excited. So I did the exact same thing you did, but instead of a PlayStation, back in the 80s, I used my sister's tape deck.
Oh, wow.
So it was a cassette tape with a realistic mixer and a realistic turntable. And then I ended up taking my sister's home stereo apart. I don't know if you remember those stereos that had the little turntable on top, cassette deck, 8-track, and radio. So somehow I was trying to plug it in the back, but everything on the back was outputs. There was no inputs or anything like that. So I couldn't figure out where to get the audio from. Then I realized that underneath the little turntable, there was 2 little RCAs. So I had to lift that thing up and then stick my fingers in there, unplug it and plug it in so I can get that into my mixer. And that's how I did it. Still wasn't beat mixing, because obviously I didn't have a pitch control on that one turntable, that stuff. But that's how it was until, you know, I was finally able to afford, you know, the real deal.
It was humble beginnings for sure, right?
Oh yeah. And it's funny because most DJs that I've talked to, they've all had the same thing. You know, you know, strict parents. Some parents were cool and they helped them out, and others, you know, got them what they could, you know, because they couldn't afford it either and stuff like that. Other parents were like, nope, go work for it. And so everybody has kind of like a similar story, but you worked hard at it, and you were able to get your first real setup through a contest. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I had like, that was my first turntable, and then my mom bought me that for my birthday, and then little by little I started buying like my own like better sets of turntables, you know, like a pair of like Geminis. That was the first one I had was a Newmark belt drive, and then the next ones were direct drive, and they were Geminis, and then I forgot the next one that I had, but my fourth pair was Techniques, and those my sister got for me. So those are the same ones I still use to this day. I got those in 03. But as far as Serato goes, I got Serato and my laptop from winning a DJ battle on Big Boy's Neighborhood on Power back in 2006. So when I won this DJ battle on the radio, the prize was $2,000 for Guitar Center and a chance to get on air on the weekend, like a one-time thing. And so, yeah, that's like the guy that I was battling back then. He was already on Serato and I wasn't. I was still on vinyl. So I'm like, dude, I got to get on Serato. Everyone at the radio station is on it. Like, if I want to be like kind of like them, I got to like get with the times, you know? So that's how I use that money. At Guitar Center back then, they sold laptops. So
how did you feel from the transition from letting go of vinyl to Serato?
I wasn't a fan of it in the beginning. I'm still kind of like that with like technology when it first comes out. I'm still like, nah, like I'll wait for you guys to test it out, then I'll jump on it when it's like
when it's proven.
Like, yeah, exactly. So I was kind of against it, and then like some of the guys from the radio station were like, dude, get on Serato, man. Like what are you doing? Like get with it, you know? So I was like, all right, like I have these $2,000 that I can use for that. So I did it, and little by little I was like, oh, this is pretty cool, man. Like I can download songs that I don't have on vinyl and like play them. Like it's like a win-win, you know? So little by little I just fell in love with it.
It's funny because, you know, I have DJs that, you know, friends that have been DJing for a long time, and they'll be like, you know, they tell me, oh no bro, that, you know, that controller thing and this and that, you're not a real DJ and blah 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 blah. And you know, there's always the people that say, no, it's turntables or nothing, you know. And then there's others that say, no, well, you know what, controllers, you know, they give you a lot more flexibility to do many more things, you know. What's your take on that, on turntables versus controller?
My take is like whatever works for you, you know what I mean? Like I'm comfortable with the turntables, but there's been residencies in the past where they only have CDJs, and I go in there, and first in the beginning when I first got a residency where they had CDJs, I was like, oh man, I'm not really comfortable, but little by little you get used to it, you know what I mean? And it's like I feel like you, like as a DJ, you should be well-rounded and be comfortable with whatever gear they put in front of you. I also own a controller. Whenever I do like little mobile gigs, like parties, or like even when I used to do the UCLA games before the pandemic, I'd take my controller just because it's convenient, it's portable. Like the turntables are heavy, like they're cool for the room, you know, for the home studio. But aside from that, it's like sometimes like a controller is cool. Like so yeah, especially with DJs nowadays, like turntables are like pretty expensive and hard to find, and then the mixer is like $2,000. So it's like it adds up when you're trying to get everything separately. So like there's a controller I've seen, the Pioneer SRT 1000, I want to say it's called. And that one's like 1,100 or 1,200. I'm like, dude, that's a dope ass controller. I've used it a few times. Like,
it's funny because like, I'm wondering, like, okay, again, like I was never a scratch DJ. I was never good at it. I mean, I could, you know, just do a little bit, but I mean, like stuff like what you did. Like the other day I saw your mix, your tribute to the Dodgers, man. That was freaking awesome, bro. I mean, the fact that you sampled the announcer's voice and stuff and you were scratching in on it, I was like, that is bomb, man. That was awesome.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate it.
So, I mean, your skill for scratching is spot on, man. And that's one of the things that I'd never been able to conquer. But you being a turntablist and a scratch DJ, how do you find the difference between the turntables and scratching on a CDJ or a controller? I mean, obviously there's a difference. You know, how do you make it work?
There is a difference. But like I said, that controller that I mentioned earlier, the newer Pioneer 1000, that one's dope. Like I used it once or twice at a gig, and it was very close to what like my mixer, like the S9, the Pioneer S9 does. So I felt really comfortable with that. My controller that I do own, like mine's like an older controller that came out years ago. So with that, whenever I do use that one, it's a little tougher to like get into certain cuts that I get on turntables. But you, like I said, you get used to it. You know what I mean? Like when I started doing more and more of like the gig where I had the CDJs every time, it was like I found myself like, oh, like I feel more comfortable now. You know, like a week later, like, oh, I'm getting like my hands are getting used to it. You know, but yeah, there's I feel like there's more of a lag with the platters because the turntable platters are a little more like you have more room to like put your hand over the record.
Right, yeah.
And on the controller, the wheels are a little smaller, so
that's kind of like what I found, because like on turntables, you can, kind of mess around a little bit more, as opposed to like on the controller where it almost feels like you can't go as wide as you do with the turntables. Like you have to go a little bit less,
Yeah, and it kind of plays like tricks with your mind where like you let the platter go on the CDJ and it doesn't move. So depending on like which ones you have, sometimes it's just like it doesn't move. So it's like like it plays mind games.
It's like you get so used to using the turntables that when you do that, your mind plays tricks on you. That's wild. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So how was it that you got into Power 106 back in the day?
So going back to what I was mentioning earlier, where I won that contest, so part of it was part of winning that was going on air once on a Saturday night with Big Syph and Eric Deluxe as a guest, So I did that, and then after I won that, like I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like slept on it a little bit, like I won the contest, but that didn't mean I was employed by them.
Right.
So for a year, I kind of just like slept on it, like kind of got complacent, like that was cool, I won it. But then like one day I'm like, what am I doing, man? Like they know me now, they like me, they chose me as a winner. I know a lot of the DJs now. So I started hitting them up. I'm like, yo, like, like, is it cool if I send you guys a demo? And they were like, yeah, go ahead. So I would email them demos and stuff, but they wouldn't get back to me. They'd ignore it. They're busy dudes, like, and they probably would get a ton of these. So I understood it. But like I just kept sending them, and if they wouldn't reply to me, like 2 weeks later, I'd be like, yo, here's another one. And they'd be like dope, but Fuze, like you're dope, we like you, but we're just not looking for guys right now. Like, I'm like, all right, like whatever. So a month later, I'm like, here's another one. And like on my 7th or 8th demo, Felly hit me back and was like, yo, bro, like we're doing the 12 Days of Mixmas during the Christmas break. Like, are you ready? Like I have an opportunity for you. I was like, damn, I'll never forget where I was. I was driving. I remember I had my sidekick, my T-Mobile sidekick, and I opened it up and I saw an email from Felly, and I'm like, this is it. Like, this is my chance to like finally like do what I've wanted to do for so many years,
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how it happened. They put me on every weekend, and I was just kind of like doing like trial runs. I was that guy that like I wasn't officially hired. I was coming in to do like guest mixes, and yeah, like a lot of the guys had their gigs midnight to 2 or 2 to 4 in the morning, like so they weren't gonna like go on the radio and turn down like this like high paying gig, So
right.
I was like, yo, I'm here, like put me on, put me on. So for a year, I was going on air, like doing like the latest shift on the radio, and yeah, finally in 2008, November 2008, they came with paperwork and were like, let's make it official, man. Like, you paid your dues, like let's make it happen,
Nice.
So that's when I finally got hired by Power.
Your persistence definitely paid off, and it's funny because I've known talented people that gave up, because they weren't getting that call back, and they just said, "Oh, forget it, I'll just try something else and stuff." But I think it is extremely important, for like new up and coming DJs that are considering, taking this route, to never give up. You can't give up on your dream. You got to push, and even when they say no, say, okay, here's another one, just like you did,
Yeah.
And that is extremely important, especially when you want it so bad and you got the talent, And there's a lot of people out there that unfortunately are talented, but they let it go to waste by giving up, by just saying, well, you know what, I'm not going to be begging them and stuff. And sometimes it's ego, sometimes it's just like, whatever. But it's important. If you got that dream and you got the talent, stay after it.
Yeah.
DJ Fuze, you're a good man for doing that, man.
Yeah, thank you, bro. Yeah, I mean, I've told a lot of DJs in the past, like they've asked me for advice on like getting on the radio. And every situation is different, you know what I mean? I can only speak from my experience.
Right.
But like you said, it was persistence, a lot of like not giving up, even when they were like, bro, like you're good, but we don't have like room for you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So obviously I won the contest, so that kind of like got me a little ahead of other other dudes that didn't have that opportunity. So I was lucky in that sense, but still I could have given up, when they said like we don't have room for you. But I just kept going, and I'm like, you know what? I really want to do this. I was young. I was going to school. I had a lot of energy, so I'm like, let me get after this, and I made it happen. You know what I mean? But yeah, I've told a lot of dudes in the past, like, don't give up, man. Like if you really, really want it, like you can make it happen. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing stopping you but yourself, and it's not going to be an easy road, but you can do it, man. Like
Yeah.
submit those demos. Don't be afraid. Like if they give you feedback and you're not good enough, get better. Get practice, and you'll make it happen, man. Like you gotta want it. You gotta want it really bad. Yeah, for sure.
So when you first got started, how often would you say you were mixing?
Like you mean like practicing?
Practicing, yeah.
Every day, every day. Like I remember I'd come home from school, from high school, and my parents were very strict, you know, and they were very big on like as soon as you come home, like eat something and then start doing your homework. And it got to the point where I was like, I wouldn't even eat. I would just go straight to the turntables, turn them on, and mom would be like, "Hey, your homework?" I'm like, "Oh, hold on, mom, I'm practicing," you know.
Yeah.
And whatever, you know, she was cool about it. But at the end of the day, I had to get my homework done as well.
Right.
But I was just so addicted to like getting home and like just turning on the turntables and like scratching. And it wasn't. I was just practicing for me. Like I wasn't DJing anywhere, so it was just like this little hobby that I had. But yeah, it was an everyday thing, a couple hours a day. On the weekends, it was more because, you know, I was home. I wasn't working yet. So I was just stuck to the turntables. Yeah.
It's addictive. That's for dang sure. Especially when you get that first perfect mix or that first perfect scratch and you're like, oh, that's it. That's the one, you know?
You're like, yep, it sounds like whatever that one DJ that I look up to, like he did that. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And it's just like you want to do more. You want to do more and more and keep it going and learning more tricks and blends and whatever, you know.
So what was the first big gig that you got that you look back and you say this was the one where you were nervous but you nailed it, you know, and it was just out there? What was that first big gig?
My first big gig. I mean, I remember my first gig. It wasn't necessarily like anything big, but I guess in a moment, it was like the first week after I graduated high school. I got hit up to do a house party, and that was my first gig. And it was very like random, you know, like my uncles had come over to visit my dad and some of my cousins were over. So then I'm like, Dad, like I have this gig, like I didn't have my own car yet. So he's like, oh, I'll take you. Then all my uncles got out from the living room. They were watching the soccer game and they're like, oh, we'll help you load everything. And so literally all my uncles, like 4 of my uncles and my dad, like all took me and they all get off and like help me unload the turntables.
So you had your own roadie crew and everything. Huh?
Yeah. And then, like my cousin stayed there at the party with me. I didn't even have like flight cases. I used like the Techniques, like the original boxes, like cardboard boxes to stack my turntables. It was like so ghetto, but that was like my first gig. And even though like there was only like 20 people it was like a graduation party. Like it was fun, you know, it was fun. And like, I look back and I'll never forget that day. You know what I mean? I'll never forget that first gig, even though like nobody was really there. And then, but fast forward to like 2010, I want to say, I got booked by Rihanna to DJ at her birthday party.
Wow.
Because she had heard me on the radio and like, she's like, oh, I need some DJs for my party. So she had heard me and then like, she booked me. So that was like,
sweet.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know when I'm going to like stop DJing, but like, I feel like that's going to like, I'm always going to remember that like
that's
gig,
huge.
You know?
How did she get a hold of you? How did she manage to get in contact with you?
Well, back then, Reflex was that power and she was working a lot with them.
Okay.
With like Rock Nation.
Okay.
He was doing work for the label. And so, yeah, I think her people reached out to him and were like, yo, like, who is this guy, DJ Fuze? Like she heard him on the radio and like, she likes how he sounds. So she wants to book him. So I was in Vegas and I get a phone call. They're like, yo, we're so-and-so from Rock Nation. Like, I thought it was a prank or something, you know? I was like, I didn't believe it at first. They're like, yo, are you available to DJ tonight for Rihanna? I'm like, well, is this for real? They're like, yeah. I'm like, well, I'm in Vegas. And they're like, oh, well, can you get over here? Like, can you like get back in time for this party? I'm like, dude, I'm there, man. I was going to stay till like the next day. I'm like, nope, I'm leaving right now, you know? So, wow. Yeah, that's how it happened.
That's awesome. That's very cool. I could just imagine what that must have felt like.
Yeah, a lot of nerves. I had another gig afterwards, so I did my set. I shook her hand. We didn't take a photo the first time, but she came up and she said thanks, and she was really like down to earth and humble. I was like, damn, that's so dope to be like a big superstar like her and just kind of like come up to me. She didn't have to come up, even though like she like, you know, heard me or whatever. Like it was very nice of her to at least come up and say thanks. So yeah, that was like a memorable gig for sure.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, of all the things that you've done, what would you say is your biggest accomplishment that you're most proud of?
Uh, I think it's probably winning that DJ battle that kind of got me noticed and recognized by like the people at Power.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I was hesitant to even enter the battle. I waited till the last day to like record my mix, and I feel like that was like kind of like a point in my DJ hobby career that like I just went for it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
Why
I
do you
feel like
think you were hesitant?
just because I was just a bedroom DJ,
Mm-hmm.
DJing at house parties, and you know, like I knew I was decent, but like I knew like it's LA. There's so many DJs in LA like that are trying to make it. So I'm like, I'm just another guy. You know what I mean? I'm just like one of them. So I'm like, I didn't have that confidence. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
I was just kind of like an outsider. Like I want to be them. You know, so I think that was like a big turning point in my DJ career where I was like, man, that gave me a lot of confidence, and I went for it, and you know, things just started getting better from there. You know?
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
At what point do you transition over to the real 92.3?
This was 2009, so last year, summer of last year.
Okay.
You know, it was I had been at Power for 11 plus years, you know, and like paid my dues there. Like I had fun. I lived it to the max. I did whatever I could. And yeah, it was just time to change. You know what I mean? Like my guys, Jay Cruz and Jeff had moved, and Lecheto had moved over to Rio.
Mm-hmm.
Things worked out for them where they were able to move over there. And yeah, like they hit me up, and we're like, bro, like our boss like is interested. Like you want to talk to him? I'm like, I was so scared. I was like, dude, I don't know. I'm still working over here. Like I don't know if I can.
Right.
But little by little, I talked to my wife. I talked to some close friends and family, and they were like, dude, like talk to them, like see what they can offer. And you know, like I went and visited them, and you know, I talked to Jeff and Cruz, and they were like, bro, like Vic One as well. Shout out to Vic One. So yeah, they were like, bro, like you won't regret it, man. Come over here, like we'll take care of you, we'll keep you busy, and yeah, it was time for a change. It was nothing against Power, you know what I mean? Like I was there for so long, and it was just time to like switch it up and like try something new before I get older, and you know.
Yeah,
I want to.
It also feels good when they reach out to you and they say, "Hey,"
exactly.
You know what I mean? I grew up in radio. You know, my father was in radio since before I was even born, and you know, so it was pretty much I was destined to be working in radio. And I started off at Power 106 back in 1989, and after a few years, back in '92, was it? I got the call from K-Love. Because I was doing promotions at the time. I was doing music research. I was running the board for Casey Kasem's Top 40. Wow. And then I was also going out and doing promotions. And I don't know which event we were at where it was a big festival and a bunch of stations were there. And I was busting the mic and I was just doing my thing. And these people from Caleb came over and they're all like, "Oh man, you're rocking it," and this is that. Okay, cool, thanks. Yeah, appreciate it. Good luck. And this and that. And I didn't think nothing of it. A few days later, I got a call and they said, "Hey, we would like to talk to you. You know, we saw you over at this event." And, you know, I said, "Well, I don't want to transition and go to become a street teamer." But then they're all like, no, we're considering you for promotions director. And I was all like, "Oh, all right, okay." So it was like, boom. And then I didn't want to leave Power. Power had been my dream. Yeah, but at the same time, I had kind of just reached a plateau there. Yeah. And I wasn't going any higher, so I needed to take that risk. And pretty much after that, every other station that I worked at, it was weird because I said to myself, it seems like I got a 3-year lifespan at each station. And it was like that because every 3 years somebody would reach out to me. "We want to talk to you. We want to talk to you." And I was like, and it was only one time that I hit a wall where I worked 1 year for a company. I won't say which company that was, but I hit a wall. And I said, you know, I got to get out of here. And I left and started my own little recording studio there. And but yeah, pretty much every 3 years, somebody would recognize something that I did and reach
like
out.
You said, it's a great feeling, you know,
right?
Like, especially when you, like you said, reach the plateau,
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of feel like, man, I can't grow anymore. Like I
Yeah.
get it. Like it's a competitive, industry. So sometimes it just, you reach a wall and you're like, man, I got to try something new. But it's a dope feeling to get people from other stations and reach out to you, and give you new opportunities and new life. You know what I mean? In a way. For sure.
Where do you get your creativity from? Like, what do you think is it that inspires you? Because, like I said, I mean, you were the only DJ that I saw come up with this, Dodgers tribute, and the way you did it was just freaking awesome. I mean, it would have never crossed my mind
Yeah.
to sample the announcer's voice and do it. At first, I thought they were like older samples, but then I was saying, oh no, this is the real thing. So
Yeah.
Where do you get these ideas from?
I think it started like one of my buddies, DJ C's. He's one of my close friends. He I think he was doing that first before me, and I kind of like not copied him, but just kind of like saw that he was doing it, and he was sharing like some of the mixes, and I'm like, oh, that's dope. He would do like kind of like a tribute mix for like a certain artist.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd grab like interview bits, like he'd like rip them off the internet.
Okay.
Turn them into MP3s and then like kind of like scratch them in, kind of like what I did on the Dodgers tribute.
Right.
And then there was other dudes like on just like Mixcloud and Mixcrate back in the day where I was listening to mixtapes and they were doing like similar things, taking bits of like TV shows from back in the day and like using like certain samples to get creative with whatever the theme was for their mix,
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, one guy, DJ Destruct, he did like an R&B mix, and it was called like For the Winnie. Remember that one show, The Wonder Years? Yeah. So he sampled like some of their voices, and then like the whole theme was like love and like the kid, I forgot the kid's name, but him and Winnie like falling in love or whatever. So like I was like, man, I gotta try this. So like I started doing that on some of my mixes, and yeah, I also did it for Kobe Bryant when he passed away. I used some of his audio and scratched it in and just like get creative that way, Like, so I won't say like I came up with it. Obviously not. Like a lot of other DJs have been doing that, but I take some of that. I like doing that sometimes, and then I always go back to like the whole turntablism aspect of it, like like juggling sometimes, like scratching in certain parts, and even using like some wordplay here and there. I just like to take like different forms of creativity and just like put them all together,
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, man, you definitely got some talented hands, man, because I was watching a video of you and I just like all I see is like literally just blur, you know what I mean, of you doing your thing, and I was like, damn, this fool's fast, man. It's like I was like, what the hell, man? And that, again, like I say, I always wanted to learn, but the thing, to be honest with you, with me, I'm more like I love electronic music. I always, my favorite band, Depeche Mode. Okay, I'm an '80s guy. You know what I mean. I love all the old new wave stuff. And then when techno and trance and everything started coming in, I just fell in love with it, man. Those long, looped out songs, and you just ride the mix and stuff. I just love that feeling and stuff. But I always kind of had an urge to learn how to mix, and I would mess around with it back in the day. I remember messing around with freaking Michael Jackson's "Wanna Be Starting Something," just the beginning, and that's all I did was just the, I wouldn't even know nothing, just that, and then little by little I started messing around, and I got okay when I first started messing around. I got okay to where I could say I was doing pretty good. I remember. I said, if I can copy Rocket, the scratch in Rocket, I said, I might be able to learn this stuff. And I started messing around with that, that little... So I was able to, messing around. I said, okay. So I started doing it for a little while, but then I just stopped practicing, and I started concentrating more on mixing, and then I started doing some remixes. So, the scratching just never stuck with me. But like you said, I mean, the importance in learning scratching is obviously the continuation and practicing as much as you can.
Yeah. I mean, and scratching is cool. Like I have fun with it. I like doing it. I'm still, like I said earlier, I'm still trying to like learn some other things like with scratching, but like I respect like you know what I mean? Like you can probably blend records like cleaner than a lot of other dudes, you know what I mean? Because you practice a lot of like the house type of records, and like I respect that. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
that patience of like blending in, like I don't know, like 32 bars or whatever it is sometimes, where it's like these long intros. You know what I mean? Like I don't have that patience, and I'm like so I respect dudes that do like and that do stuff like that, and even like dudes that rock the mic a lot. Like I'm not good on the mic like that, you know. So whenever I see a dude rock, like turning down the song and like talking and like getting the crowd going, I'm like, I respect that, you know what I mean? So that's what's cool about DJing. We're all different, you know. Like
Right.
there's different like types of DJs, but like at the end of the day, like everyone's got their own style, whatever makes you special, you know what I mean? So that's what's beautiful about DJing. It's like a sport, you know what I mean? Like that one player is good at this and this other player is good at that. So it's all love at the end of the day, you know?
Right. Now, at the beginning, when we started talking, you mentioned a couple of bands. I think it was like Blank 182 and some of these, bands that had DJs in the background. Even though they were more like alternative and rock and stuff, they still had some DJs in the background doing their thing. Now, who would you say were the biggest artists that influenced you aside from them, but those artists from hip hop that started, your career?
I do remember bumping a lot of like DJ Quick. He's still like one of my favorite artists of all time. Busta Rhymes, still a big fan of his. Tribe Called Quest. Obviously, like being from out here, like my little sister, my older sister would buy a lot of like the 90s like hip hop. Like she'd buy the singles at Warehouse Music. So like I always grew up like hearing like the Warren G's, like like the Snoops, the Dog Pound, Nate Dogg, Dre, Ice Cube, like all of that. Like I heard it from my sister. My parents were, for some reason, they were stricter with me, maybe because I was a little younger. So, but with her, like they let her buy all this stuff. So when like I got into DJing and I had Serato, like I took all of those CDs and like I burned them onto my computer. And to this day, like some of those songs like are like songs that I got from her from the 90s. So it's pretty cool,
That's awesome. Yeah. Have you ever considered getting into producing and remixing and stuff?
I've thought about it, but I've messed around with a few things, and kind of like with you and scratching, you know what I mean? Like I've tried it and I'm like, I kind of get it, but then like I don't, and then I just stop. And it's like, I feel like if I really wanted to do it, like I could, but then like I'm like, damn, but I got to knock out this video for Beat Source. So I got to do this other routine for this and that. So I just always get to like a point where I'm like, I can go back to DJing, you know what I mean? And I know like that there's like money, a little more money in that. And you get a bigger following when you do that. But I just never got to that point, you know what I mean? Hopefully
and the reason why I asked that is because I really like your creativity, and I feel that if you were to go that round to that aspect, I mean, I think you'd be pretty good at it because your creativity is really great. For those of you that are watching, check out his mixes because this guy's sick, man. He gets down. So it's like I really enjoy that. I get a feeling that if you were to start producing, you might come up with some really dope stuff,
Yeah, I guess what it is I got to partner up with, kind of like get that one person that like just shows me, you know what I mean?
Right.
Shows me and then take it from there. So yeah, I appreciate that, bro. Like, that means a lot. It's just a matter of learning the production side, because obviously all these ideas are in my head. It's just a matter of like being able to put them together and make it make sense as far as the production side,
Yeah. So you mentioned right now videos and everything. What else is it that you work on aside from DJing?
Aside from DJing, I mean, I work on, a lot of people don't know this, but like I do some production for the station at Rio. So like I put like some of the shows together for the weekend and stuff, some of the syndicated stuff. So yeah, like whenever I'm not DJing, like I'm like editing sound, I'm putting like talk breaks together that air like on syndication and stuff. So yeah, I do a little bit of that. I'm still like trying to get better at it, but like that's something that like I recently got into. And yeah, I still work with my dad, man. Like my dad owns a construction company. Nice. So like not as much as I once did when I was younger, but obviously I'm like so caught up with like all this DJ stuff and music stuff. But yeah, I still do like some of like invoicing for him, like contracts. Like if there's like a lead, and they'll hit me up like, yo, can you come and do some work at my house? And I'll be like, yeah, like what do you need? And and then I talk to my dad and we give them a price. So I'm still involved in that. And a lot of people don't know
business,
that.
That's good, dude.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. Like I kind of just keep it like family and like close friends that know that. But I'm proud of that. At the end of the day, like I'm happy to help out my family.
That is a blessing, brother. That is a true blessing to be able to have that connection, with your family, especially with your dad and stuff. I mean, like, I know, like, my story. I mean, my dad did not want me to be a DJ. He did not want me to even to get into radio. He knew what it was all about and stuff, and he was against it. But it was inevitable. The music, I had it in me, and one way or another, I was going to be involved in music. But later on, he became proud of me as I started to work through the realms and everything and making my way up. And he was like, "All right, you made it. You made it happen. Just get after it and continue at it."
Yeah, same with me. My parents were always like, not that they didn't take DJing serious, but they always wanted me to like take over the family business. But I mean, I always like to balance it. Where like I help them out. But like at the end of the day, like music and DJing is like what I really love, like what I personally like to do and enjoy, you know what I mean? So, but like me being like close to my parents, I'm like, whenever they need my help, like I'm here to help, you know what I mean?
That's
as much
awesome.
as I can. So just try to balance it out for sure.
Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah.
So we're coming up to the end here of our little talk. What's next for you, man? What are your plans as far as your DJ world and where you're headed? What are you thinking?
We'll see. This pandemic has definitely like changed up a lot, like as far as like the mobile gigs, as far as like the clubs, the bars, all that's been put on hold.
Yeah.
I've gotten hit up to do a few spots, but just I'm trying to take it like easy. Things are still like very uncertain, so with the virus and stuff. So we'll see when it gets back to normal. But for now, I'm blessed, man. Like right now, like I'm staying busy at Real 92.3. Like shout out to Cruz, shout out to Radio Basement E-Rock, and shout out to Tino, Cochino, and even Vic One. He has me covered for Big Boy's Neighborhood from time to time. So
nice.
I'm staying busy there. I'm staying busy with Beat Source and Globalization, Sirius XM. So right now I'm blessed, man. Like, obviously a lot of income was lost with, with COVID coming around and our mobile gigs and stuff. But like we'll see what happens. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to like think too much of like what's next, because I feel like that's like, it's like kind of like up in the air with what's gonna happen with
everything, like, the way the situation.
Yeah. So right now I'm just like I'm focused on like doing good with the opportunities that I have in front of me right now, and we'll see what happens. I definitely would love to grow more in radio, where I DJ more on a daily basis. That's always been like a goal of mine. And right now I'm blessed like to DJ on the weekends, like all the hours that I get. But yeah, I would love to be on air. That's always been my dream, to be on air like every day, so hopefully
you'll get there, man. You got the talent. You got the talent, and you got the perseverance.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Well, listen, brother, thank you so much for taking the time and chatting with me. I really appreciate you. Much respect for what you do on the turntables. And again, you that's watching, if you want to check out more of DJ Fuze, all his links are going to be in the description. And of course, if you like this episode, make sure you hit the like button. And as always, subscribe and slap that bell so that you get notified when I have another amazing talent. DJ Fuze, thanks, brother. Stay safe. God bless.
Hey, thank you for having me. I had a good time and great interview, bro.
It's on. Take care.
All right, you too.